Welcome to our presentation. This is a complete guide to dynamic actions in Apex. I'm Craig Sykes and I'm joined by Matt Mulvaney, and we are from Explorer. So, who are Explorer? We're an Oracle Platinum partner. We've won multiple awards. Most recently we won the Database Partner of the Year and the Engineered Systems Partner of the Year. And we have multiple dedicated Oracle teams within our company, and we've got development and tech and also an engineered systems practice. So this is a quick slide showing what both the development and database support teams do. You can pause that and have a read if you like. So who are we? I'm Craig and I'm with Matt. We've both got many years experience in Oracle technologies, including PLSQL, forms, reports, and most recently Apex, working across many different business sectors. Our jobs include delivering training, speaking at events, writing blogs and publishing them on our website, and we're primarily consultants and developers. And we like to promote and enthuse about Oracle Apex. So the agenda for this presentation is a complete guide to dynamic actions. We're going to start by giving you a short history of dynamic actions, and then we're going to give you a demo of the events and actions and their attributes that you can assign to them. And then we're going to give you a bonus demo at the end, showing you just a couple of the mobile dynamic actions that are available. And then we'll give you a quick debrief going over what we've covered. So what are dynamic actions? These were introduced in Application Express Release 4, and they allow us to define complex client-side behavior declaratively without the need for JavaScript. So this just means everything that we had to code ourselves in previous releases of Apex to give us kind of Ajax callback functionality, we can now do most of the time using dynamic actions. So we can specify an action that's to be performed whenever a defined set of conditions occur, and you can specify which elements are affected by this action and how they're affected. So I'm just going to pass you over to Matt now.
Oh, hi. Okay. Here's a list of the dynamic action events. So in the first column we have the list of browser events such as change, click, double click. These you may be familiar with. You might be not familiar with ones like resource load and page unload, for example. So the next two columns are the interfaces which can be used. So we have the desktop application for desktop applications, and then you've got mobile user interface for mobile applications. So you'll see there's some blanks there where, for example, the double click is not a browser event for the mobile user interface, nor is many of the mouse button presses or even the resize. Okay, so this slide shows the framework dynamic action events. So you have before and after refresh, you have before page submit, and you can also have your own custom dynamic action events, which we'll show you later on in this presentation. Okay, here are the list of the dynamic action events which are really applicable to the mobile user interface. So we have orientation change, and we have the different swipe, tap and touch, and including a virtual click dynamic action event. Okay, so we're going to show you a demonstration now which will cover all the dynamic action events and cover all of the true actions which are also possible. Okay, so this is the demonstration. The first is going to be implicit dynamic actions. So an implicit dynamic action has similar functionality to an explicit dynamic action, but you don't actually see it as a dynamic action when you edit the page. So a good example of this is cascading LOVs. So in my application here, I've got a department, got a list of departments here, and I have a list of employees. So what I want this application to do is, if I click on a department, I would like the employee select list to be refreshed with employees of that department. As you can see, they're just two separate lists of values. They're not connected to each other. So what I could do is I could create an explicit dynamic action looking for the change event of department, and if it changes I could refresh the employee select list. Or better still, I can use the implicit cascading LOVs. So I'll just quickly set that up. So if I edit department in page editor here, if I click on employee, as you can see the select list is selecting first name and then last name, then employee ID, where department ID is the one which is selected, P1 department. If there's no department selected, then I want all employees. So I'm going to cascade from the parent list of values, department. So now, when I run the page, the two are linked together. So IT, I can see IT staff, finance, I can see finance staff. If I select null, then the employee select list is set to null. This is because optimize refresh is set to yes. So let's change that. Turn optimize refresh to no and run the page. So basically optimize refresh says if the parent is null, assume that the list of values which is cascaded down to will be null as well. So now if I picked null, I can see all employees. Then back on the department I can see just my selected employees. Okay, so that was implicit dynamic actions. Now let's go to the main dynamic action events. So we're going to cover change and click. So click of a button is quite easy. So we can see the current time here. Notice the seconds are 07. If I was to get time again, you can see the time changed because I have a click event and then I have a true action which sets the item to the current time using a PL/SQL expression. Change events here. So I have a list of regions, continents. If I pick Europe, I can see a number of countries in Europe, or Australasia, the number of countries there. So let's see how this works. If I edit that select list, you can see I've got a change on item P2 region. Then I'm going to set the value of number of countries using a SQL statement. I'm also going to set P2 last updated. As you can see, that's changing as well as I change the list there. I can see the seconds changing. So that's actually using a JavaScript expression rather than an item, just demonstrating how that works with a jQuery selector. You also see that the selected region ID is also changing. But I do not have a true action to set that. That's because it cascades down from another item. So on the number of countries, when the number of countries changes, remember that's set by the change action of that. I have a change action on here which also sets the selected region ID. And again that's selecting the value of P2 region and setting P2 region ID. Okay, I'll hand you over to Craig who will do the key events.
Okay, so we're going to have a look at key event dynamic actions now. What we've got here is an Apex search screen, and this has been created using the wizard. So it's just created a classic report with a search bar. So what I've done after creating this is we've added some dynamic actions to kind of alter the functionality of this search page. So instead of having a go button like we normally would, we can actually search this report just by typing, and as we type you can see that the report refreshes in real time based on what's been typed into the search box. So if we have a look how this has been achieved, if we go to our dynamic actions, under key release here we have a refresh report dynamic action. So if we have a look at this, the event is key release and the selection is the P3 search item. So every time the user types into that box, the report underneath is refreshed and it's based on the submitted P3 search value. So the action here is just a refresh action of the region search results, and this happens every time we type into the box, every time a key is released. So if we start removing characters from the box, you can see the report refreshes again. As well as the key release, we've also got a dynamic action here based on the key press. So this dynamic action, the action itself, the event is key press, and it's based on the jQuery selector of the body. So anytime we press any key, that keystroke will be registered. So we're going to take this using JavaScript and store it into P3 typed, which is then submitted. So if we type again into here, we'll type a different name. If we click on the session button, we can see that our P3 typed is recording every single key press entered by the user. But this the key press dynamic action, it only records numeric and letters. So you don't get your spaces or returns or backspaces recorded in this item. Okay, so that's the key press events. If we move now onto the focus events, we've got a sign up form here, and all the page has on it is two fields. We've got a name field first and an email address field. So we want to kind of talk the user through and help them fill out this form. So our first event is a focus event. So if we edit the page and have a look at the dynamic action before we use it, we've got this get focus dynamic action. So if we just expand this, the event is get focus and the selection type is items and P4 name. And when that's true, so when we focus into that field, we're just going to fire a jQuery pop-up giving us a bit more information about the field, saying we need to enter our name and email address to sign up to the newsletter. So if we run the page and click into that box, we get a pop-up giving us a bit more information. If we press OK, that's focused back into the box and we don't get the pop-up again. So if we go back to our dynamic action, this is because if we have a look at the action itself, the event scope is just set to once. So it's only going to happen one time on the page. So if I type my name in there, and then I start typing my email address, the second dynamic action we have on this page is the lose focus dynamic action. When we lose focus of the P4 email field, the true action is we're going to open up another modal dialog after validating what's been entered in P4 email against this regular expression, just to check that it's a valid email address. So if we press OK, have a look at this. We've lost focus now, so it's popped up an error. Craig is not a valid email address. So I go back to this field and type my actual email address. And then we tab out and we don't get the error. So it's just giving us a bit more information without actually writing it all on the page. So I'm going to pass you back over to Matt now to go through mouse events.
Okay, so mouse events. So on this page I have three regions: mouse enter leave, mouse move and mouse button. Okay, so we'll start with the mouse enter and leave. So this is a dynamic action which looks for the mouse entry into this region here. So if I move the mouse slowly, so I'm touching the region and entering the region, the mouse enter event fires and turns the background green. So as long as I'm in this region, that background colour is going to turn green. Once I leave that region, then the green is removed. Okay, let's edit this region, show those mouse events. So if I go to dynamic actions, we've got the mouse enter. So when mouse enters the region, mouse enter leave, I want to run this JavaScript code which turns the background colour to be light green. And I also have a mouse leave on the same region, the mouse enter leave region, and that just runs some JavaScript to remove the style, so remove the green background. So quite simple there. Mouse move, as soon as I enter this region, you'll see an X and a Y numbers on the screen, and I'll just keep moving the mouse now and you'll see those numbers changing. Okay, so that's the X and the Y coordinates of the current mouse position. What I kind of like about this example is that this dynamic action is firing hundreds of times over a few seconds, and there's no noticeable performance drop in that. So it's very, very, very quick, very powerful. Let's demonstrate that. So in this region, I have a display only P5XY, and then therefore I just need to set the value of P5XY. So in the mouse move dynamic action, just off the page there, it detects mouse move in the region mouse move. And to grab hold of the X and Y values, then I need to use this.browserEvent.clientX for the X coordinate and the Y coordinate there. Okay, the third region. So mouse button. So if I click the left hand button, and I'm going to hold the button down now, it says left pressed. If I release the left button, left released. I can do the same by pushing the mouse wheel down, which is the middle button, middle pressed, and if I let go of that, I get middle released. And same with the right click, and when I let go of the right button, I get the browser window. Okay, so let's see how that's done. Edit that. So I have a mouse button press. So let's try the first one, mouse button press, brackets left. So this event only fires when the mouse button is pressed. If I was to drop this down, I don't have an action for left mouse button press or middle or right. However, I can use a client-side condition here to say this browser event.button is 0, equivalent to 0, so that is the left button, and the middle is 1, and right is 2. So each time I click a button, I can set the value to be a static assignment of right pressed or middle press or left press. And I have the same thing for released. So on mouse button release, I say which button, and the true action is just some boilerplate text there. Okay, so hand you back over to Craig for loading and unloading of pages.
Okay, so I'm going to show you the various points at which a dynamic action can be fired when the page is loaded now. So here we have a screen where we can select a colour. We've got red or green. If we select red, a red circle appears. If we select green, a green circle appears. So this is done using a dynamic action. On the change of this select area, we're just setting the style of this region on the page. Now, if we move away from this page and move back, you can see that we keep the green selection. It's remembered what we've clicked and it's set it on the page. So if we have a look at the code behind this, we've got these on-click dynamic actions. So change selection to red. When we change the TC tag, which is this select item, and the value is red, then we're actually going to execute some code. We're going to put P6 select into session, then we're going to change the background color of the picked div to red. And we've got the same for the green one here. So they fire whenever you change a selection. Now, what we're also seeing is when we move pages and come back, it's remembering our selection. So this happens on page load here. So we've got this on page load event, and so every time the page is loaded, it has a look to check what the value of P6 select is, and it sets that correct color to the background color of the div. So we're using the page load dynamic action to kind of get some functionality here. So there's a few different ways you can fire code when the page is loaded. There's this page load dynamic action. So I'm going to show you where this fires as the page is loaded. So here we've got a page load dynamic action, and it's just going to create an alert that says page load. So I'm going to turn this on. We've also got, within another dynamic action, here we have a select dynamic action. So when you select the color picker, it's going to fire this action. And the alert is going to say fire when page loads toggle. And this, if you refers to this item here, where it says fire on page load. If this is set to yes, this action will also fire on page load, as well as where you've defined it to fire. So we're going to turn this on as well. Okay, so next we've got this resource load dynamic action. So if we click on this, we can see the event is resource load, selection type is JavaScript expression, and the expression is just window. So what this means is whenever we load, once we've loaded all our CSS and JavaScript files, all the resources that we need, this will fire our dynamic action. So that again is just an alert that says resource load. So if I switch this to be turned on, and then finally within the top level of the page, if we go down to the execute when page loads section, we're also going to put an alert here, so we can see where these events fire and in what order. So I'm going to save and run the page now, and the first thing we get is this page load alert. So the page load one's firing first. Next we get the fire when page loads toggle. So that's when you define one of your other dynamic actions to also fire on page load, it fires second. Next we've got the code entered in the execute when page loads section at the top level. And then finally we've got the resource load dynamic action. So you can see with these 4 different options, you're able to define exactly when an action is going to fire in relation to the rest of the page loading. Okay, so finally on this page, I just want to show you resource unload. So if we have a look at our session, we've actually been setting this p6 unload item to tell you when the page is unloaded. So the last one was 15:29:05. If we have a look at that here, go to dynamic actions, page unload, that fires, it's as you navigate away from the page. So we're just setting this p6 unload sys_state as we leave the page. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to move away from the page to the next one, and if we just quickly set the session and have a look at page 6 again, we can see that the p6 unload has changed and it's been set as we moved away from page 6 to page 7. Okay, so I'll just pass you back to Matt now.
Okay, so this next page is about the resize event and also covers the scroll event as well. Okay, so in the first region, we're going to demonstrate a rich text editor. So when you place the rich text editor on the screen, you can specify in the attributes a width to specify a certain width on there. However, if I was to resize the screen, so let's resize it to this shape, and then pull this right hand edge in, you can see that the browser is chopping off some of the words on the right hand side. So keep moving that. I'm losing more words. I'm now losing icons. So you can see that the rich text editor does not resize out of the box. I've tried to put a CSS width 100% on there, but that has no effect. So the rich text editor is a web editor by CKE editor, and CKE editor provide some APIs to dynamically resize this this rich text editor. So I'm going to show you a resizable rich text editor here. I'll just click the button. Now the region is now visible. So you can see this is full width of the page now. And if I was to minimize that, and let's do the same example. So I'll just scroll down a bit. With this right hand edge, you can see that the rich text editor here is responding to the width of the browser. So let's move into the icons, and the icons start to respond as well. So I'm not losing anything on the page. So what's happening here is every time I pull the browser width, it's actually find the browser resize event, and I can run the CKE editor JavaScript code to resize that. So let's have a look at this page. So resize. So when I use resize, I give it a name, event resize, and it fires certain true actions. So here I can call CKE editor instances, and then the name of my rich text editor, and then I can call the resize method, which is available there, and through a bit of mathematics, getting the width of the navigation bar on the left hand side and getting the browser width, I can dynamically resize that rich text editor, so it now becomes responsive. Okay. I'll cover select as well. So the select event is basically selecting some text. So if I select the word demonstration, you can see whatever I selected now appears in the use selected. So Explorer or demo. Okay, a quick demonstration how that works. So on this item I have a select event. That select event sets the value of use selected, which is this display item here, and that uses a JavaScript expression. So this function is at page level, and that just gets the window selection, the selected text, and updates that area there. Okay. So scroll is the next one. So here I have an interactive report of customers. It's a large report. If I keep scrolling down to the bottom, I have a bit of padding on the bottom here, but I've not yet reached the foot of the browser. If I scroll a bit more, so I've got an advert which has popped up, a pop-up advert. I can close that down, and I'm back on the page. So this uses the scroll event. So when you use the scroll event, you need to specify that it applies to the window, the browser window. So every time you scroll the window, it's going to fire this true action, which is basically showing the advert. However, I don't want to show the advert every time that I use this scroll bar here. I only want to use it when I'm at the foot of the page. So I can use a client-side condition here to work out whether I've hit the foot of the page. If I have, then I'm going to show the advert. Okay. So over to Craig now for refresh dialog.
Okay, so next I'm going to show you a few events that can be fired from a form and report. So here we've got an interactive report showing all the customers in our database. And the first thing I'm going to show you is the close dialog event. So we've got this dialog here. If we change this user's surname, we'll change it back to the correct surname, and press apply changes. We can see that that's instantly updated the report, but without refreshing the page, and this fired as the modal window was closed. So let's have a look how we did that. If we edit the page and go to the dynamic actions, we've got this here, we've got this dialog closed event. So all we do is we select the event is dialog closed, and then the region or the selection type is the thing on the page that fired the dialog. So in this case, it came from within the region customers. If it was a button, you would put that there as instead. So whenever this dialog is closed, we're just going to refresh the region customers, and this will give us this the kind of seamless update on the page without doing a submit. Okay, so As well as this, we want to have a look at maybe doing something to the report before it's refreshed. So in this example, we've got this status column here. Gold, platinum and silver are the statuses. Within the query, we're actually bringing back an extra column with a case statement, which is going to define a background color for each of these statuses. Okay, so after refresh, first of all, we've got this style dynamic action. So this is going to fire after refresh of the region customers. So whenever it's drawn on the page, it's going to fire this dynamic action. The code here is just going to apply to the column, so it's going to apply the color to the status column basically using jQuery. And this is going to happen every time we refresh. So if we turn this on and run the page, you can see that this status column now has updated to show the color represented by each customer's status. And if we apply the filter, we can see that the report's been refreshed and this status column has it's been coloured in again. So this has to happen because interactive reports are redrawn every time you do something to it. So if it was just on page load, it would only apply it the first time the interactive report was drawn. Okay, so as well as these, we've got a before refresh dynamic action as well as the after refresh one. So before refresh, we've just set this dynamic action to fire before refresh of the region customers, and this is going to execute some JavaScript code, and it's going to grab the current time and date, and it's going to apply it to an item on the page, P9 report start. And then we've got the same action after refresh here, which is going to add the end time to P9 report end. So if we run the page, you can check in your session, and we've got report start and report end, and we can see exactly the time between the refresh starting and the refresh ending. Now this is really useful if you've got perhaps a report which is running slow in some cases but not in others. So you can record how long it's taking for each user, and you could record that against maybe the settings or filters that they've applied, so you can kind of get to the bottom of any speed issues in your application. Okay, so next we're going to have a look at some custom events. So here on this page we have a square region, and this is draggable. As we drag, we've got this region appearing. The region is currently being dragged, just to let us know that that's happening. So this region is using jQuery UI's draggable option. So if we edit the page, we've got these two custom dynamic actions. The first one is drag start, and this is using the custom event drag start, and that's whenever that happens within the body of the page. And all that's doing is going to show our info region, which says region is currently being dragged. So after that, we've got the event drag stop. So this is the same, just using different custom event, and this is going to hide that region. And this just allows us to completely define any event that we want that isn't selectable by default within Apex. So we found this draggable component within the jQuery UI documentation, and within there you can see the events as well that you can add into your dynamic actions. Okay, I'm just going to pass you back to Matt now to have a look at before submit and shuttles.
Okay, so this is the before submit event. We'll demonstrate it in the shuttle here. So the shuttle has two events on this. So it's got the change event. So as soon as I shuttle a country across this side, the change event will fire. And if I was to use the up and down arrows here, the change order would fire as well. Okay, so let's move some countries across. So as I shuttled some countries across, you could see that there was this green block here which turned to red. Okay, so this is some type of validation that I have. So the validation requires that all my selected countries must be in alphabetical order. So each time I use these arrow keys, the order change event fires. So it's still red. Let's move Argentina to the top, and when I move it to the top, the validation passes. So a quick look at that. So on dynamic actions, I have the change order. So on change order of shuttle, I want to trigger the change event. So rather than duplicating the same code as on the change event and the change order event, I can just call the change event on the shuttle. So it uses a bit of PL SQL there to work out if I'm in the right order. Okay, the last one I want to show you is on this page is before submit. So this button actually submits the page. So on a before submit event, it's your chance to do some type of validations before the pages submit and before the processes run as well. So it's a chance to catch it. So on before submit, I want to add a class which zooms the region out onto the right hand side, and then I want to actually prevent the page from submitting. So I can use this built-in Apex DA cancel event, and it'll cancel the submit event, or alternatively I could use the cancel event here. It does the same thing. So with this in place, you should just see the region zoom out to the right hand side. So click before submit, and there it goes. It's moved off to the right hand side, and the submit has been cancelled. Okay, moving on, we've got selection type and event scope as well. So selection type, I have a click event here on a region. It can be assigned to a button, it can be assigned to an item. You can also assign it to some JavaScript as well. So I have some text items without this class called clickable. If it's got the clickable class, then the background color goes pink. So if I click on any of those, I get an alert saying clicked on pink. Those all work. Okay, so if I edit the page, I have click on a JavaScript expression. So all these ones like item, their selection type is item, button is button, region is region. This one's a JavaScript expression. So I'm saying click on any input field, provided that input field has the class clickable. If it has, then we want to see that alert. We can also use jQuery selector, so I could have the word input there instead of dollar brackets quote input, which I would have to do when I pick JavaScript expression. Okay, so that's selection type. Next one is the event scope. So if I was to edit this report here, basically I've got a select statement with a button, and I want the buttons to be labelled the category name. So you'll see I've got office equipment, hardware, example. I also have an ID of that button called category name button. So what this is doing is every time I click on the button, it tells me which category I've picked. So office equipment or Office 1. Okay, so I want a dynamic action to have the click event on this button. So what I've done, click on the dynamic actions, I've got a click event, but this time I move the event scope from static, which is the default option for items, buttons and regions, to dynamic. So this is dynamic content, so I need to pick dynamic, and I can use the jQuery selector of the ID I showed you, category name button. So that determines the click event. However, once you pick dynamic, then static container appears. So this is asking for the region which the dynamic content appears within, which is static. So this whole region is a static region, and I've given it a static ID of report region. And that's all I need to know for the dynamic action. So I need to say, what's the event where you click in on the category name button, and what's the static element it's in? It's the report region. So when you click on the button, I want to say, this triggering element, which is the button, give me the text, give me the label of the button. And that gives me that label of that button there. This button fires once. So if I hit that, it says thank you, your order was submitted. If I try to click it again, no other actions. So that click once, the event scope is not static, not dynamic, but once. Okay, so I'm going to hand you back to Craig for conditions.
Okay, so here we have 3 select lists, and we're just going to have a look at how conditions work within Apex Dynamic Actions. So we've got these 2 select lists, both to select a job title and to select a secondary title. If we select something, we see that nothing's really happening, and again with the bottom one, nothing's really happening. If we change this allow selection to yes, and then we make a selection in the job title select list, see that we've got this alert at the bottom of the screen saying job title selected. If we select a secondary title, we can see that we get a secondary title selected alert popping up. And so let's have a look how that works within the dynamic actions. So change select list 1. If we scroll to the bottom of here, we can see that the condition is set to P22 allow selection. If the value of that is 1, then that fires, and it's the same for change select list 2. And that in this case it just means whenever allow selection is set to yes, then it's going to fire these alerts. So let's look a bit more closely at these dynamic actions. The first one here, when you change select list 1, we're going to fire this alertify plugin to give us that message at the bottom. We've also got this condition here with the item type. So we're saying if P22 jobs 1 is not null, then we're going to fire the true action. So let's test that. If we select a title, we get the alert. If we select nothing, we don't get an alert. So again, we select a title and we get something. If we select nothing, nothing happens. Okay, so if I just select accountant as the first job title, so let's have a look at the second dynamic action. So change select list 2 is very declarative condition. We've got a JavaScript expression here. So in this case, we can just write our own code to create our own conditions. So for when P22 jobs 2 is changed, if the value of this select list is the same as P22 jobs 1, then nothing's going to happen. Otherwise, we're going to fire the code and fire the alertify plugin. So if we have a look at that working, if we select accountant in the second select list, it's the same as job title and nothing happens. If we then select sales manager, we get the secondary title selected popping up. So that just shows you how you can use conditions within dynamic actions to alter whether or not your dynamic actions are going to fire on your page. Okay, so next thing we're going to have a look at is using the JavaScript API. So you can define dynamic actions declaratively within the builder like we have been doing, but you can also use the Apex API to fire dynamic actions from wherever you want on your page, and this is all in the documentation. So what we're going to do on this page, if we just copy one of these item names, so we'll take P13 email and put it in here and press hide, that's hidden that field, and if we press show, that's shown that field. So if we have a look within our page, we've got no dynamic actions defined, so this has all been done using the API. So instead of using the dynamic actions, we've got these two buttons, hide and show. What they're doing is, if we have a look at the hide one, it's redirecting to a URL, and from here we're just going to fire some JavaScript. So the JavaScript we're going to fire is apex.item, and then we're going to use a second apex.item with p13 item name to kind of tell us which item we want to fire the dynamic action on. And then we're just going to use .hide y to apply the hide dynamic action to the item that we've typed into the box. And then we've got the opposite here in the show button. We're going to set .show to y. So you can see from this page we've just got those two JavaScript calls, and we can fire dynamic actions just completely based on what's being typed into this box. And you can put the dynamic actions anywhere in your application using these APIs. Okay, I'll just pass you back to Matt now to show you how to call dynamic action.
Okay, so calling dynamic actions. Okay, so in this example we've got multi-select checkboxes. So for our presentation, yes, we have more than 15, more than 5, more than 1 person for our presentation. How are we doing for time? Well, we've been talking for quite some time, so we're after 30, 40, 45 minutes. So if I click Use Selected, I get returned the values I've selected, so 1, 5, 15. And for this one, I should get the same thing, 30, 40, 45. So how is this achieved? So I have a click of that button and I run some JavaScript code. So here I'm using Apex Event Trigger. Now two keywords, document and turnout, and I'm specifying some data that I want to send across. So the data is the string P12 spectators, which is that item there. Okay, so document and turnout. So in this custom events, I have a custom event called turnout with the JavaScript expression document, and that's all I need to create to have my own custom dynamic actions. So that runs JavaScript code, and this uses this data, which is that third element. So that was P12 spectators, and I'm using apex item and get value. And the good thing about apex item get value is if it's an array type, which is this one, it will return an array. So I can just look through the array and then alert out which ones were selected. On the button here, how are we doing for time? When you click that button, I want to fire or trigger the select event of P12 time being the checkbox. That has a select dynamic action on there, and I showed you earlier that the select was selecting a piece of text, but with a checkbox it's impossible to select those texts, so it's almost perfect really for this example. Now this is running the execute JavaScript code. This time I'm getting the items, this triggering element, so the item which triggered the event, and I can use get value, and again I'm going to look through and get the alerts. Okay, plugins. Okay, so we saw earlier, I'll use this example next. So we had the example earlier where we were changing something in a form. So if I change to Shelly, apply changes, Shelly's been changed on this order item. It's been refreshed. Although, let's try it on a different page. So 2364, let's change AJ to Blake and apply. So it's done the change, but it's reverted back to page 1. So if I move back to page 2, it's changed to Blake. So if I was to edit that, we can fix this by using a plugin. So instead of the dialog close refresh, let's use refresh and keep page pagination. So if we run that now, if I edit page 2, change it to Charlotte, and apply. It's been changed, but I stay on page 2. Also, I've noticed that my modal dialog sends a success message, which I'm not seeing. Again, that can be fixed with a plugin. So I'm going to change that to be always run. Now I can show the dialog success message, and that's a plugin. So every time now, when I edit somebody and then press apply change, I get action processed. Okay. So hand you back to Craig for a mobile demonstration.
Okay, so as well as the dynamic actions within your desktop application, there's also a few that are mobile UI specific, and I'm just going to show you a couple of those now. So if we have a look at this mobile application that we've created, I'll just press F12 to change this into a mobile looking application. If we click on this page here, we've got this here we're going to kind of show you how swipe dynamic actions will work. So we've got two boxes here. The first one says I move left when swiping left, and the second one says I move right when swiping right. So let's just swipe left. You can see that this moves slowly to the left. If we swipe right, you can see that that shrinks and moves quickly off to the right. So let's have a look how this is done. If we just go into our mobile application and page 2. Okay, so we've got two dynamic actions here. We've got swipe left and swipe right. So the first one, the event is literally just swipe left. You've got a few different mobile specific dynamic actions here. Swipe left is down at the bottom, and the selection type is just region 1, and this is the only region on the page. So whenever we swipe left within that region, this is going to fire. The code that we've got, we're using the selector for slide left, which is what I've called my first region, and we're going to just add the class slide out left, and this is using the animate CSS library. For right, we've got the same thing. When you swipe right in region 1, we're going to execute JavaScript code, and we're going to add the class zoom out right. So this just adds a slightly different animation to the right swipe. Okay, so as well as the swipe, I'm just going to show you tap. We've got this box here. It says tap the box to change its color. If we tap in the box, you can see the color is changing randomly. If we tap out of the box, nothing's happening. If we just have a look how we achieved this, we've got one dynamic action on the page called tap, and the event is tap, pre-existing for your mobile applications, and the selection type is JavaScript expression, and we're just saying region. And if we have a look within the region I've created a div on the page just called region, and so whenever we tap inside there, it's going to fire this dynamic action. So we have a look at the code. It's just some JavaScript code. We've got a huge list of colors, and all we're going to do is randomize this list, pick one, and set the background color of the div called region to be this random color. And this just allows us to, when we tap in, just change that color. Okay, so I'll just hand you back to Matt now.
Okay, so that's the demonstration over with. Coming next in 5.1, well, I've been through the documentation, the beta documentation, and dialog closed makes an appearance, which is the browser event Apex after closed dialog. That event was available. If you have a custom event, you can trap that event, although it was not available declaratively. Coming next with 5.1, all dynamic actions will be asynchronous using Ajax. I installed one of my demo applications into 5.1, the early adopter, and saw dramatic improvement in performance of dynamic actions.
Okay, so just a quick debrief of this presentation. We've gone through pretty quickly all of the dynamic actions that you can create. We've gone through the events that you can have actions triggering on, and we've gone through the actions themselves and what you can select to actually happen when these events fire. And then we had a quick look at some of the mobile specific events and actions that you can add to your applications.
Okay, so I'll leave you with the final slide. So this is a link to our website at explorer-development.uk.com. Both our email addresses are displayed at the bottom there, and I'll just point you in the direction of our blog at the top there. So we keep the blog up to date with items which with new blog entries which appear at least monthly on there. So thank you for your time, and thank you for watching this presentation.